Hello, my lovely listeners. I'm Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns. Welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss.
Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss with me, Dr. Mary. And I'm super excited today because I am joined by the fabulous Nicole Mitchel, who is a wonderful rock star of ours who has revolutionised her health. And she is here today to tell us about her story and the changes that she's made with low carb real food so far. Nicole is a busy mum of two, and she's still managed to make these fabulous changes despite her extreme busyness. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, Mary. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for coming. Really, I know that you've given up a portion of your Sunday to do this, so I'm really, really grateful. So could you tell our lovely listeners about you and your story?
Wow, that's a big question. And every time I try and capture this story, it's a little bit different. But I feel like the most recent time when I've tried to do that, I did the 12-week program in the most recent lot of that. So I finished up in November. And this morning I actually went back to my introduction post that I did when I joined up to the group and had done a bit of like a self-reflection on like, why am I here? Because there was nothing comfortable for me about joining the 12-week program. And I don't even think there's anything particularly unique about my story. I certainly would have described myself as someone that had disordered eating. Had disordered eating as long as I could remember. I can remember instances of obsessing over food and just really disordered behaviours around food as early as like grade 1, grade 2 in primary school. And that was a theme that just carried on from there. I remember maybe around the end of grade 2, start of grade 3, really starting to get this sense that I was not the same as the other kids. And I think a lot of that was probably around, I developed quite young. So by the time I was in grade 6, I was fully developed, like the same height I am now. So I think that was probably a factor of it, that I always felt much bigger than my peers. And that was probably a really skewed perception now when I look back on that I probably was a lot bigger than them, but I was also fully grown. If I had just stayed there, I would have been fine. But had a real sense of difference, and that left me feeling like I didn't belong. And I think I often felt quite ashamed about that. It was about managing the shame of not really fitting in, but trying to fit in, really having to learn to be a bit of a chameleon about how can I adjust myself to belong as best I can with this constant kind of awareness of being different. So fast forward to early high school, I certainly was doing like restriction of like just not eating, feeling really horrible about that, and was quite fascinated by some books that I had found that were kind of about disordered eating on reflection that I'd found in the school library. So it was really obvious, I think, in a lot of ways. I was never small, and every single one of those times when I would try and not eat would completely lead to binging. And an author that I really love her work, Janine Roth, says that for every diet, there's an equal and opposite binge that goes with it. And that was absolutely my experience. So for my whole life, that had defined who I understood myself to be. For a start, a fat person. But also to be a good fat person, you have to be trying to not be a fat person. So I obviously didn't understand that until much later, but looking back, everything I did was about either trying to prove that I was trying to not be a fat person, or I was trying to prove that I didn't care that I was fat. But none of it was about genuinely myself or my true self or anything like that. It has just defined, that pain and that shame has defined everything that I did. Every relationship I had and the way I showed up in that, and the lens that I looked through everything of. Obviously that led to quite low self-esteem, but also the bravado of you know, I'm fine and I'm confident. And I've had lots of people say to me when I've, you know, kind of explained that's what my internal world is like. They're like, I'm just so surprised that that's what your experience has been, because you're very confident and outspoken and a go-getter. And I'm like, well, that's all part of that. You have to be. People have to like you for something other than how you look, because they're not going to like that.
That's an incredibly powerful story. Like, to feel that inner shame and guilt, and to identify as someone who is fat, but at the same time not being allowed to be okay with that. They're very powerful stories to have in your head. You're not alone. Definitely not alone.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that now, I should also add. I kind of intellectually could understand that, like, if I'm feeling like this, other people probably feel like this. And I certainly saw that in my own family. Like, even in my own family, I'm not alone in feeling like that. But it feels so isolating, because you never want to admit that or have to own that identity. Like, you're forever railing against that and trying to have that not be true. At the very least, please nobody notice.
Yes, and wearing this mask. You're also blessed or cursed, depending on how you look at it, with intelligence and emotional intelligence. You know, your background is in social work, so you are really well versed in human psychology and understanding how our brains work. So tell us more of how the journey you've been on, you know, towards healing and finding a healthier version of yourself.
Yes, it has been quite a long journey, like so many of us. But I think the first time I started to challenge that sense of shame and that experience of just perpetual suffering, I suppose, was when I originally found, just by chance in a bookshop, I found a book called Women, Food and God, which is by Janine Roth. And I read that cover to cover, and I was like, right, anything that she's got, I'm going to get. And ended up, and this was in, I don't know, maybe like 2010, 2011, something like that. But her message was it was much more like an internalized systemic trauma approach, I suppose, of starting to go, the way you're feeling and behaving makes perfect sense if we start to explore the way the world has shaped your sense of yourself and the way you've been manipulated to feel like you don't belong because of these things, which was the first time that idea had ever been introduced to me. That, like, for one, it was society, I suppose, the way I was raised and the media and all of these influences as I was growing up is what had shaped that idea. And also the notion that perhaps it isn't true, like perhaps it's not an absolute truth, that just because I think and feel that way, that's how things are. And so she advocates intuitive eating and has some guidelines around how to do that and how to do that with presence and some other kind of strategies. And it really was about tuning inwardly and then trusting that your body does know how to feed itself and nourish itself when we kind of get our brains out of the way. And in the space of, I think it was about 4 months of just like, I would probably say almost manically, because perfectionism is like an incredibly strong trait of mine. Again, from like, that's completely fostered out of people pleasing to belong, because, oh my gosh, my world is crumbling if anybody sees that I'm anything less than perfect, because they're going to notice I'm fat. Again, I totally appreciate that is illogical, but that is the kind of core that I'd been operating from for so long. So anything I have almost ever done, if I've decided to do it, I'm doing it 110% and it will be perfect. And if it's anything less than that, then I'm just going to push that off to the side because I don't want anyone to notice I can't do it entirely correctly. So in the space of 4 months, I lost 30 kilos, give or take, intuitive eating, which was massive. And I remember I went to a doctor about something unrelated to that and just kind of mentioned that in passing. And they're like, what are you doing? That doesn't sound healthy. And I was entirely happy with it, felt great in myself. And all I was doing was eating when I was hungry and stopping when I was full. That was kind of the main thing. But the energy that it took to check in with myself over and over and over and over again to try and do that. And I had no support. It was just me trying to do that on my own with a bunch of audio recordings of Janine Roth's teachings, and it was exhausting. I don't know exactly how long I managed to hang on to that, but I remember I had gone home to see my family for Easter, and of course there was chocolate and celebrating and food and all the meals, and I didn't want to miss out. So all that just completely went out the window, and I couldn't find my way back there to that space and when I was in that space, it felt so easy. It felt so easy just trusting myself, not dieting, not restricting, and even that was a process of work. Like after, I'd done restricting, I'd done high protein diets, and I'd, done 12-week challenges through the gym, probably not as extreme as some people, because some of the really extreme food plans, I just couldn't tolerate them. I was just like, I know that that's going to feel horrible, so I'm not going to do it. But there was always this kind of perpetual, I should be, and I'm trying, and I'm picking the low-fat options, and I should have a salad, and, the shoulds and all of that sort of thing. And then, so it was a process of letting go of that and saying, I'm not dieting. And what I took away from that Janine Roth experience was I would never diet again. But that left me, when I couldn't maintain and I couldn't hold on my own, that massive psychological transformation and that mindset transformation, it actually left me basically in a perpetual binge for about 10 years of going, I can't do all of that really challenging but beautiful and gorgeous kind of self-awareness work I couldn't do it on my own. But I also couldn't do dieting, and I was just in no man's land of, I'll just eat whatever I want then, because I'm not going to hate myself anymore. I'm going to try not to anyway. And then I think leading into finding you guys, there was a few other things that I came across that I think really contributed to how I've been able to engage with your program, and the fact that it offers the bits that were missing from Janine Roth's work. I've got the support. There's some structure. I've been, someone's actually explained to me with kindness and compassion how my body works and processes food, and what my body's trying to do to keep me healthy when I'm not nourishing it in the right way. But all of those messages have come with education and kindness and acceptance, and the explicit message that none of this is your fault, and, the acknowledgement of that kind of broader systemic, societal elements of that, oppressive sense of, well, if you're not the perfectly sized person, it doesn't even matter if you're healthy, just if you don't look right, then you're not right, and, you're wrong. But I also really, really loved, I was going through a phase of listening to lots of Mel Robbins, and remember I was listening to, I think it was her kick-ass book on Audible, and then they mentioned, and she had made a little reference to Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, which is about growth mindset. And this was like, ding, 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 ding. It was like the missing piece.
All the pieces were falling together.
They were falling together. Like this was a process of a few years of just those different ingredients coming together to even get to the point where I could say yes when you gave me the information, because otherwise, I had to admit there was a problem to say yes in the first place, which felt like I felt sick to my stomach having to do that, even after all that time.
You were brave.
I literally had to be, and my motto for that moment was, I'm going to start just before I'm ready, because I was never going to be ready. That was that sick feeling in the pit of my stomach of having to let people see me. I was never going to be ready for that. That was never going to feel good.
I love that, Nicole, starting before you're ready, because it's never going to be perfect. There's never, ever a perfect time to start.
I can't even claim it. I had read it somewhere around that time. I'll see if I can track down who actually said that, but I was like, that is just the best advice for life. So, yeah, the growth mindset stuff, I just had the massive realization that I was dreadfully stuck in every aspect of my life, basically, because I was so scared to fail that I couldn't try anything new. Or if I tried something new, I would maybe do it again if I was instantly good at it. And if I wasn't instantly good at it, then I was not going to do that because it felt unsafe emotionally for me.
Your perfectionism was keeping you safe.
Yes, yeah. And it was keeping me small, and it was stopping me from changing or really learning or growing at all. But that felt a lot more comfy most of the time. If you take out of it, just perpetually living from a core of shame.
We spend a lot of time in our 12-week program and with our clients, I think, dealing with perfectionism because it's very common and it can be really paralysing.
Yeah.
And it's possible to overcome it.
But the world loves it. The world loves you to be a perfectionist, especially at work. You can really shine there if you can solve everyone's problems for them and work yourself into the ground. And the selflessness of it often, I think, for women, of being everything to everybody. Yes, please. Everyone loves that.
Yes. Yep. The perfect mum, the perfect worker.
Yeah.
Yep.
In life, there's so many affirmations to stay that way, even when it feels horrible for you personally.
Totally. We find with a lot of our beautiful clients, particularly the female clients, but not exclusively, that they are soaring albatrosses in so many aspects of their life. They are winning at work in particular, really successful professionals. They can have fantastic friendships. They can be really, loving and attentive mothers, but in their own health, they can, be like the albatross on land that is just falling and flopping all over the place and just can't get takeoff. And one of the biggest weights, I reckon, that holds down our inner albatross with our health is that perfectionism. If I can't do this perfectly, I can't do it at all. If there's a chance that I'll fail, I can't start. And that's a beautiful block to be able to work through. And it is something that we love doing. And you've done it. This is why I said you're a rock star, for lots of reasons.
Well, I think I will continue to be working on that probably forever because it was so deeply rooted. But that just having that awareness, having a framework where for a start, someone just normalised that and went, this is really normal and it's part of an adaptive way that you learn to keep yourself safe growing up. And then that challenge of, but it doesn't have to be like that. So the first place I tried to actually practice that, I made a conscious decision to go, I'm going to go and do something I know I'm not very good at and learn to be better at it. And I picked sewing. So I was self-teaching, teaching myself how to try and sew, and could not even describe the amount of pride between, I don't know, whenever that happened, maybe 2015. Between then and now, the amount that my ability to sew has improved is insane. It is phenomenal. And I actually would not have believed I could do that before. And so that, I think, was a key ingredient for me being able to say, well, I can try and do this too. I can challenge that even if I haven't been able to do it all those other times, that's fine because they're adding up to a better understanding of how to do it now.
So good. You're practicing your growth mindset. So you signed up to the 12-week Mind Body Rebalance Program in September 2020.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about, how you found that program and your transformation during those 3 months?
Yes. If I haven't captured it entirely yet, I was terrified on an emotional level. Obviously I knew I was going to be safe. It was going to be fine. And I had the added benefit that I had already known you for several years as my GP, not even realising that you worked in this space. But you had supported me through pregnancy losses. You had supported me through a postnatal depression diagnosis and recovery. And we had talked a few times in a GP appointments about weight and maybe wanting to lose weight because, it's always in the back of your mind. And you, I think, were the first doctor I'd ever seen that either, first of all, didn't centralise everything that I ever went to the doctor for about and have you realised you need to lose weight? Yes, thank you very much. I have.
As if you wouldn't have realised. Yeah, God.
Exactly, right. But I'd become very aggressive is probably the right word, aggressively self-protective when seeing doctors that I'm fine, thanks very much, and this is the thing I'm here for, and I don't want to hear anything else you have to say, basically. And you were the first doctor that actually fostered enough safety for me to ask that question for myself without ever having mentioned it, raised it, or anything else. So I did know and I did trust that I was going to be safe in that program with you, because whatever you were running was going to have that same vibe. And I had listened to most, like whatever of the podcast that was available, I'd listened to most of that. And one of the early episodes, there was an early couple of episodes that really captured this is not your fault, which was the key message I needed to have a go. This is not your fault, and this is a supportive and safe space. Thank you very much. I really need that because I'm so scared I can't push past this without knowing that's where I'm going. And that was like probably the most transformative message in the entire 12-week program, and that was infused in every other piece of learning, every video that I watched. Everything came back to, let's unpack this from that broader systemic level, on that individual level, with kindness, with self-compassion, that this is another Janine Roth quote. It's not about the food, but it's not about the food. We need to recognize that food is kind of, it's the indicator of what's going on with this personal turmoil that you're experiencing. So the hypnosis program I felt was really powerful for me, and have used that really, really consistently for that entire process. And it just, again, it just is those positive messages about self-acceptance and that this is a process. And so I think they were kind of the core things. And the other analogy that I really liked, and I think it was in week 1 of the program, and this for me was absolute gold, but the hero's journey, and overlaying this idea, for one, that my process is not unique. As much as it feels like I'm doing it on my own, I'm not. And it's really it's such a common, maybe even universal experience that it's the basis of literature. It's so common. And being able to overlay that model, and I'm still kind of using that now, that this might be where I'm up to, and this might be what I could kind of expect next. And just the messaging about that it's a cycle and it's a process. And I had a bit of resistance to this and had to work through it early on, but that this is forever. For me, this will be a piece of work I'm working at forever, because my mind, has been shaped in such a way that I'm inclined to not treat myself with kindness and to not trust my mind and body. And so that's something that I have to keep reaffirming for myself all the time. So I guess that's the crux of the transformation, just having those people, being seen, that you see me, you understand me, you basically, everyone in the program basically is me. I'm not even actually special in this way.
You are very special, but you're not alone.
Yeah, that's right. So the community of, all of those mirrors looking back at you with that same or a slightly different flavour of that struggle, and that kind of perpetual, but we're going to keep going, and we can keep doing it together, and we can keep growing and changing, because that's actually possible. Yes,
it is. And you've done really well. I mean, as your GP, and having ordered your blood test before and afterwards, and seeing your transformation, I could say from a physical point of view, you've had fantastic improvements in your health. And I would argue that even more importantly, from a psychological self-growth point of view, you've also had fantastic results.
Yeah. Even in the last week, I've had a rocky recovery from the Christmas period. I stayed on plan, did fantastic over the Christmas period, and then all the COVID stuff, it got really stressy. It's still really stressy. And I've noticed those behaviours are kind of creeping back in, only green foods, but still totally trying to do basically a covert binge of green foods. But I can see that happening, and I'm not even triggered to be angry at myself about it. To me, that's phenomenal. I'm not berating myself in my own mind all day, every day. And I'm kind of at ease going, okay, well, it kind of makes sense that you're behaving this way. Okay, we're going to keep working on that. It's not ideal. But even if I keep cycling back there every couple of days, it still makes sense. And it's not all or nothing. It's just keep trying.
Yes, you just keep going. It's not all or nothing. It's all about the progress, not the perfection. And even if you fall over you get back up, you keep going, you fall over again. It's about progressing to your destination. I love it. And you also hit on an incredibly important point that it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you have these stories in your head. It's not your fault that, you were more overweight than you wanted to be. It's not your fault. And I think accepting that and understanding that, I think, is pivotal, because it does help create that safe internal space where you can then start to make the changes that support your health.
It does, and it gives you enough space to see there's another possibility. Just that little bit of light.
Yes. Good. Oh, thank you so much. You've been such, you've been a fabulous person to have in our program, and it's been wonderful having you on our podcast, and you've been so generous sharing your story. I think you're absolutely fabulous. Before we close, I love that you brought up intuitive eating, because I think in our programs, Dr. Lucy and I use the principles of intuitive eating a lot. I think that Janine Roth she's a genius, and we use a lot of her principles about really rejecting the diet mentality, like that low carb, real food, addressing the physiology and the psychology of weight loss. It's not a diet. And we really do reject that. And learning how to honour your own hunger is really important, and being able to tune into that. And also all that beautiful thought work about rejecting the food police, the internal food police, because we've got that, the police station exists within our own psyche. And learning to let go of that. And rather than seeing foods as good or bad, and you need to either be proud of yourself or punish yourself depending on what you choose, you can learn to choose foods that are healthful and helpful to your system. And when you eat foods that aren't necessarily helpful, you don't hate and berate yourself. You just examine with compassion and kindness, and then just keep going. And this is what you've managed to do.
Even I'm a little bit stunned still. To be honest, it's a little bit euphoric.
Yes, you should feel euphoric. That is fabulous. Okay. Any final comments or questions or anything you would like to say?
I think it's really valuable for people to bring their mind to who their support team is. And there's all different types of support that can help you be brave, help you find safety. My sister did the 12-week program with me as well, and has offered me the kind of support probably nobody else could offer, because she's really called me on my BS a few times and helped me kind of see and challenge some ideas and patterns and things that were stopping me. And most of that support's been, we're absolutely rolling around laughing, because she can tell me I'm being really silly, probably with stronger language than that. But also like shifting into other spaces like body movement, and how do you do that joyfully? Like, how can you shift all these different ways that your weight has become an association of struggle or misery, and that, there's body positive trainers out there that can support you to learn to love your body in movement, and understanding what to do with food, and how to talk about that openly and honestly. Like, I never would have done a conversation like this probably even 6 months ago. But also, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't define, like, where I've been and who I thought I was actually doesn't define who I am and what I can do with the right support team. So
no, change is possible.
Find your people, find your tribe.
I am honoured that you chose us to be part of your support team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, lovely listeners. And thank you so much to Nicole for sharing your wonderful story and your transformation. Bye now.
Lovely listeners, as you know, we run the 12-week Mind Body Rebalance 3 times a year. The next one starts in February. If you'd like to join the waitlist and get early access to bonus offers, head over to our website, rlmedicine.com, and join the waitlist today. So, my lovely listeners, that ends this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And I'm Dr. Mary Barson. We're from Real Life Medicine. to contact us, please visit rlmedicine.com.
And until next time, thanks for listening. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualised medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.